You won't believe how one of the loudest comedians in Hollywood history made his mark, without ever saying a word. He never cracked a joke out loud, never delivered a punchline. Yet somehow, Harpo Marx made people laugh harder than almost anyone else in showbiz. The wild hair, the bugged-out eyes, that ridiculous overcoat full of bizarre props. He didn't speak, but he spoke volumes. But behind the honks and hijinks was a man few really knew, a man whose life was full of heartbreak, grit, and more than a few surprises. Born Adolf Marx, Harpo grew up in the chaotic tenements of New York City in the early 1900s. Eventually, he changed his name to Arthur, a quiet step away from a name that would later be associated with darkness. Back then, though, all the Marx family knew was poverty. Their apartment was small, noisy, and freezing half the year. But to them, it was home. The real powerhouse in the house wasn't one of the brothers. It was their mother, Minnie. She was a one-woman talent agency before that was even a thing. Minnie shoved her sons into showbiz before they could finish a full sentence. Childhood didn't mean games or toys. It meant train rides, rehearsals, auditions, and non-stop performing. When Harpo first stepped onto a stage, he was so nervous, he literally peed his pants. That's not an expression. He actually did. But even with that humiliation, performing still felt better than school. School was a nightmare. He was bullied constantly. And when we say bullied, we mean thrown out a second-story window regularly. Eventually, after getting tossed one too many times, Harpo picked himself up, walked home, and never went back. He was just a kid, but he already knew how to protect himself. With no education past second grade, Harpo became a street kid, playing piano in brothels, hustling, surviving. New York was tough, but in a strange way, it gave him his first audience. Then something shifted. The Marx Brothers, who were originally pushed into doing musical acts, started goofing off. And audiences loved it. Their bits got bigger, the laughter got louder. Slowly their act evolved into comedy chaos, and their stage personas were born. Groucho, with the quick wit. Chico, the fake Italian piano man. And Harpo, the wild-eyed mime who said nothing, but somehow stole every scene. Funny enough, Harpo didn't plan to be the silent type. Originally, the character was going to be called Paddy Brangan, a kind of freckled Irish guy. But then one night, during a card game, a friend named him Harpo, after his favorite instrument. It stuck, and so did the silence. Once the audience saw how funny he was without saying a word, he leaned in, and never looked back. When their first film, The Coconuts, hit theaters in 1929, Harpo never spoke a single line. Not because he couldn't, because he chose not to. That silence, it became his secret weapon. While his brothers cracked jokes, Harpo just did things. Absurd, wonderful, totally unexpected things. Pulling out rubber chickens, staring directly into the camera like a gremlin who broke into the circus. But that same silence had a downside. When the Marx Brothers landed a radio show during the Great Depression, earning over $3,000 a week, Harpo was left out. Because what's a mute gonna do on the radio? Still, Harpo's place in comedy history was sealed. And he wasn't just funny, he was weirdly brilliant. He taught himself to play the harp. No lessons, just vibes. For 3 years he tuned it the wrong way, and didn't even care. He made it part of his style. Even professional harpists were blown away by what he could do. His brother Chico got piano lessons. Harpo just listened in and figured it out. That was him. Untrained, untamed, unforgettable. His life was full of quirky little stories like that. Once, he lived next to famous composer Sergei Rachmaninoff. Got so sick of the constant practicing that he blasted Rachmaninoff's own music out the window to annoy him until he moved out. That was Harpo, a mischief machine, even off the clock. In the 30s, he went to a fancy costume party dressed as Kaiser Wilhelm, the German emperor from WWE. Yeah, not a great idea. People freaked out, he had to hitchhike home, and he ended up getting arrested for looking too sketchy. But to him, it was just another adventure. Not every story had a punchline, though. After moving to Hollywood, Harpo fell in love, the real deal. He was planning to propose, until tragedy struck. She died in a plane crash the day before. That loss haunted him for years. He avoided relationships, avoided commitment, just buried the pain deep down and kept smiling. Then came Susan Fleming, They met at a glamorous Hollywood party. She was sharp, funny, and totally unfazed by the silent clown. She was so into him, she proposed. Not once, not twice, 3 times. And every time, Harpo said no, not because he didn't love her, but because he was terrified of losing someone again. But Susan was patient. And finally, he said yes. They kept the wedding a secret, but it didn't stay quiet for long. Even the President of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt, sent them a public telegram. And just like that, Harpo and Susan started a new chapter. A quiet life. A real one. They adopted 4 kids and filled their home with music, laughter, and more than a few croquet tournaments. Yeah, Harpo was obsessed with croquet. Once he even kept the governor of New York on hold just to watch a friend finish a shot. But he wasn't all jokes. In 1933, Harpo was appointed a goodwill ambassador to the Soviet Union. Yeah, Harpo, the silent clown. Traveling through Nazi Germany on the way, he saw the early signs of horror. It made him physically sick. In the USSR, he was followed everywhere by a government spy. Still, he managed to do something incredible. An American official handed him a secret document and asked him to smuggle it out. So Harpo did what he always did. Kept quiet, taped it to his leg, and got it home. No questions, no drama, just action. Even in his later years, Harpo never stopped being Harpo. He let his eccentric friends crash at his house rent-free. He played rooftop croquet in Manhattan. And eventually, in 1963, during a live show, he did something nobody saw coming. He spoke. For the first time in public as an adult, Harpo gave a speech. No jokes, no props, just honesty. The crowd was stunned. You could have heard a pin drop. Harpo Marx passed away the following year, on his 28th wedding anniversary. Perfect timing, right? His funeral was packed. One of the only times anyone ever saw Groucho cry. Because that's the thing about Harpo. He wasn't just the funny one. He was the heart, the soul, the silent strength holding it all together. He didn't need words to be remembered. He just needed a look, a grin, and that ridiculous horn. If this story hit you right in the feels, give it a like and stick around. There are so many untold stories from the golden age of Hollywood, ones that deserve to be heard, or in Harpo's case, felt.